Hey guys, ECRG here. We're just going to go ahead and get right into it because today we've got a subscriber viewer question that has been submitted. You can submit questions to eliteclinicalgroup@gmail.com, or you can submit questions in the comments section. I will likely do a video of them as well as give you a response. So submit questions to either eliteclinicalgroup@gmail.com or in the comment sections. In the comment section, I may respond faster. So keep that in mind. So today's questions are: what is an intern's role in clinical operations, and what is clinical operations? So we're not just going to talk about an intern's role in clinical operations. We're going to talk about an intern's role usually in clinical research altogether. And then we're going to go in with what is clinical operations. So first off, what is an intern's role? An intern's role primarily is to learn as much as possible. You're there usually unpaid, but sometimes it's paid. Your goal is to learn as much as possible. And that's why they hire interns. Why companies hire interns is so that they can learn as much as possible, get accustomed to the company and or organization. And if things go well, you may end up getting a job offer after the internship is complete if you do well. So your primary role is to learn as much as possible. But apart from that, some things that they may have you doing is TMF reconciliation. And different companies have different departments, obviously, but an intern in each different department may do different things. So I'm most familiar with clinical operations and project management. So and a lot of times these business units or units altogether will have overlapping tasks. But when I had an intern that was under me, I had her doing TMF reconciliation. That's first and foremost because you get to learn a lot about essential documents. You get to learn about being detail oriented. You get to learn about the TMF. It's really a great basis and foundation for your clinical research knowledge base and career. TMF is something that everyone has to deal with, from project managers to project directors to CRAs to in-house CRAs. It is the final deliverable given to the sponsor at the end of a study. And it basically has all the data, everything that was done throughout the clinical trial is documented in the trial master file. And that's a great way for interns to learn. And if you're an intern, you definitely want to get some experience with that because that is a very high in demand task that companies want to know that you can do. It's very tedious. Some people don't like it. If you watched my videos, or if you haven't watched my videos on most hated tasks in clinical research, I would check them out. You may see TMF listed in there. Not going to give away any hints, but you may see it in there. So that's a task that you're going to have to do. Some interns may do meeting minutes, and you're pretty much, as an intern, going to be a jack of all trades. They're going to deploy you how they want to deploy you. And your job is primarily to just say yes to as many things as possible, learn as much as possible, and of course, network. So that's the intern's role typically when they come into a CRO, or whether it's on project management side or clinical operations side. Now, if you're on the finance department or investigator payments, I don't know as much about that, so I'm not going to comment on it. But typically, they may not have interns there, and you may get some of that stuff doing project management because you're going to be dealing with contracts and budgets. You're going to be dealing with, the budget of the clinical trial potentially. So that's a great place for you to get your start, project management or clinical operations. So then the second question of that, this is a two-part question, is what is clinical operations? And I realized that I dropped that term a lot throughout the videos that I've posted so far, or maybe some of the videos in the future that I talk about. And clinical operations is pretty much a department which houses the CRAs, the in-house CRAs, the clinical trial assistants, basically anyone on the clinical side of things. So anyone that is site-facing is going to be in clinical operations. And different companies may call it different things. So don't get too stuck on the term clinical operations. just know that clinical operations is typically site facing, and they are the people that are going to be most in contact with the clinical people. So PIs, sub-investigators, study coordinators, the people that are actually conducting the research on the site, the clinical operations department is typically going to have the most contact with them. So just think about it that way. Clinical operations, you're going to have contact with the clinical people. Project management, you're going to have contact with the sponsor. That's the two separate sides of the company. You've got site facing, and then you've got sponsor facing. Occasionally they overlap, but you don't want to get confused there if you're new to clinical research. So think of project management as sponsor facing and clinical operations as site facing. So that's two different distinctions there. So you don't want to get too caught up with what they call it. Different companies may call it different things. I'm more familiar with companies calling it clinical operations as a whole blanket term. But under clinical operations, you're going to have monitoring. You're going to have, maybe a remote monitoring department, central monitoring or clinical monitoring, whatever they call it. But you're definitely going to have the monitoring department in there. And you're going to have maybe some CTAs, clinical trial assistants. Everybody clinical is in clinical operations. So that's it with clinical operations. That's it with the intern role. The intern's role primarily, just like I said, learn as much as possible. You're going to be doing anything and everything that they throw at you. So don't get too caught up with what tasks you're going to be doing, what tasks you're not going to be doing. You definitely want to make sure that you're doing that you're going to get some exposure at least to the TMF. If you're interested in becoming a project coordinator, project specialist, a CRA in the future, clinical trial assistant in the future, that's a good task to get your start. And definitely a task that people hire for. So you definitely want to make sure that is on your radar. So thank you so much for submitting your question. And I'm glad I was able to help out through email, but I'm also going to do this video here. So if anyone is interested in asking more questions, drop them down in the comments below. That's where I like them. And also you can email me at eliteclinicalgroup@gmail.com. And I will keep it anonymous, or I will say your name if you want, either or. Thank you guys.